Today's going to be a little bit different from maybe some of the services we have. For a start, I haven't forgotten the reading. Jim, I'm afraid we haven't got one today, so thank you anyway, but there is no reading today. Secondly, it's a bit of a one-off service. Andy and Hannah are away at a wedding. The wedding was yesterday, but because we had the church anniversary a couple of weeks ago, and then last week was the preschool leavers service, this week's just going to be a bit of a standalone service, so if you don't particularly remember next week anything we talk about today, that's fine. Having said that, I actually do want to draw on a few points that we have looked at over the past few weeks. So it was 3 weeks ago that I was up here and I was speaking about Saul. Some of you may remember, and his experiences on the road to Damascus. And one of the big things that I tried to get across, and hopefully successfully got across, was that if we wanted to be superheroes for God, we had to get to know who He really is. And then 2 weeks ago, at our church anniversary weekend, there was a big focus on looking at what God is really like. And those who came to the cafe service in the evening, you remember that we watched the DVD together of Wayne Grudem, and he shared with us some of his thoughts on the attributes of God, some of the elements of His character and the nature of Him. And as I began to prepare for today, I kept thinking about how we've been looking at the character of God and how we've been looking at recognising, getting to know more and more of Him. And as I was thinking about what I could use for this service, grace just kept cropping up. And so today, I'm going to share with you something of grace. However, as I say, it's a little bit different, not because it's just a standalone talk, not because there's no reading, but also because we're going to do things a tiny little bit differently. I'm going to talk for half the time. I realise I get boring after about 10-15 minutes, and then I'm going to hand over to somebody else on a DVD that I'm going to show you. And it's a clip of Louie Giglio, the pastor at Passion City Church in Atlanta, and he's going to continue where I will leave off. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you gain from it as much as you would at any other service. I feel that there's really something in this message of grace, and so my prayer today is that God speaks through me and God speaks to you. And so grace, well, the Bible speaks of grace 170 times. It can have many meanings and uses. It can be used as a noun or a verb, but it is the definition, of course, that involves God that we're going to be most interested in. So the grace of God, a phrase I'm sure we're very familiar with, can be summed up like this: the free and unmerited favour of God as manifested in the bestowal of blessings and the salvation of sinners. So let's break that down a little bit. The free and unmerited favour of God. Grace is free and an undeserved gift from God. We know that much already. It's manifested in the bestowal of blessings. So God's grace provides us with blessings, be it physical or spiritual, be it a need or a want. But most importantly for what we're going to look at today, it is manifested in the salvation of sinners. We see grace in action when people come to know Jesus. And so I want to share with you today's story. And some of you may have already heard it, and for that I apologise. The story that formed the basis of the DVD clip I'm going to show you in a bit is a sermon by Louie Giglio called Fruitcake and Ice Cream. And it's about grace, believe it or not. But the talk is built around the journal of an American college student called Ashley. And so let me tell you a little bit about her. She's just about to start her last semester in her final year at college. She's living at the college campus, away from her home, in an apartment with her boyfriend. Back home, her mum and dad are divorced. Her mum, brother and stepdad are Christians. Her biological father, a bit of an atheist. And Ashley, like her father, doesn't really have much interest in God. So one afternoon, Ashley's at college, she's not feeling too good, and she decides that she's going to go home and she's going to sleep for a little bit. But as she arrives back at the apartment she shares with her boyfriend, she finds him in bed with another girl. So of course she's furious and kicks him out of the apartment. But she knows, however, that she can't afford to live there by herself, and so she puts an advertisement up in the college to say that she's looking for a roommate for her final semester. And a girl named Krista responds to the ad and soon moves in with Ashley. Over the next few days they get to know each other a little more. Ashley finds out that Krista is a Christian, and Krista finds out that Ashley is a bit of a party animal. All Ashley really seems to care about is making sure she gets enough marks for a pass in her course so that she can spend the summer party, in her words, like it's 1999. And Ashley, in her journal, begins to refer to Krista as Fruitcake for being a bit of a goody-two-shoes Christian. And one evening, Ashley's inviting some friends round to watch a film. Her ex-boyfriend is there. One thing leads to another, and before she knows it, she's back in bed with him. She wakes up, massive hangover, her boyfriend already gone, as he says he's had to go to an early seminar. As the day goes on, the hangover wears off, she goes for a run. And while she's out running, she sees her boyfriend's car, or what she thinks is her boyfriend's car anyway. So she remembers the night before he'd said that he wanted to clear his head, he didn't know what he wanted, etc. And so naturally she slows down to see if it is his car. And as she does, she sees him coming out of the apartment block of another girl, the one that he'd shared the bed with only a few days before. So she runs home, she jumps on the kitchen worktop, she pulls out a beer and a tub of ice cream, and she cries. Now Krista, or Fruitcake, was already home. She comes into the kitchen to see if Ashley is okay. Of course I'm not okay, she replies. She wants Krista to leave her alone, but knowing that she's not going to because she's now got some ice cream herself and sat down, Ashley asks her why she is the way she is. Why doesn't she drink? Why hasn't she slept with her boyfriend Jeremy for 3 years? Why does she even care about Ashley? And Krista says that it's because of God. It's because she has a personal relationship and that she is saved. Now Ashley admits in her journal that Krista, she's not like other Christians she knows. She's not pushy like her mum about her faith, but still, she's a fruitcake. Krista asks why she's upset. And Ashley explains everything about her ex-boyfriend, about wanting more time apart and then seeing him do the girl, etc. And that he's been using her, that he's cheated on her, that he's messed her college life up. But Ashley writes that Krista didn't give her all the Christian talk her mum usually gave her. But she simply said, Ashley, I'm really sorry that he's done that to you. And then Krista said, can I pray for you? Ashley laughs, jumps up, says she's going for a shower. After a shower, Krista's gone. Ashley gets some more ice cream, sits on the sofa and cries. She writes that she doesn't understand why Krista is so kind and caring towards her, that she should be Krista's enemy. She writes how Krista does not seem to think she's better than her and that this God and Jesus stuff are real to her. She says she doesn't understand her at all. And it's shortly after this that I want to show you this DVD clip with Louie. It's about 10 minutes long-ish, just a bit shorter. I really feel that he's going to do a much better job of telling you about where grace comes into this story than I am. Just to say that Louie is reading the actual journal of Ashley, so there may be a few words that we maybe wouldn't use ourselves at home. I just ask that you understand in that, and as Louie does explain earlier in his talk, actually it's the words of Ashley, and this is Ashley's story, and it wouldn't be her story if he started to alter the words. So if we can just flick the lights off, that'd be great, and we'll watch this DVD together.
So we get to January 21st. Okay, today, I did it this morning. Fruitcake and I were in the kitchen, and I asked her why this God stuff was so important to her. She told me it was because he truly loved her, and he was her closest friend. So I asked her what she meant by that. She said exactly what I said. She said, God is all about love, and God's love is the greatest thing ever. So then I was like, why do you live all perfect the way you do? And she laughed and said that she was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but she was forgiven. She said she was at this Passion Conference, the 20,000 people with no lives thing in Atlanta. She said she was reminded that God loves not only her, but also the rest of the world. He sent His Son to die for us all. Basically, the Easter story. Mom used to make me go to church all the time. I hated it. I quit going in high school when I was able to stay at Dad's place all the time. Her parents were divorced. See, God is for people like Fruitcake, Jeremy, and their friends, not for people like me. I'm way too screwed up for God to care at all about me. Fruitcake had to go to work, so we had to end our conversation. She said that she would love to talk some more when she got home tonight if I wanted to. I told her maybe. Well, after she left, M came over and apologized for sleeping with that girl, parentheses, again. But as he said, we're not together anymore. But he did say that when he saw me running away, he realized what a big mistake he'd made again. He said that I'm the only one he wants to be with. He said he loves me so much, and I really want to believe him. We've been through so much together. But can I forgive him for sleeping with that blank again? Besides, he's not going anywhere in life. He's on academic probation and is a second-year junior. He's a professional student. I asked him to leave. I told him I could not do this again. I'm moving on with my life. He left, and I cried for a very long time. I do not need first, middle, and last name. I can live life on my own. Besides, I can get any guy I want. Who needs him? Still January 21st, 2007. Okay, so I'm back again. SHIT, it has been a crazy day. Crazy enough to make me come back here twice in one day. So no actual homework got done today. I cried, shopped, cried, ate, cried, ran, cried, and ate again. So you get the point, there was a lot of crying today. I did not answer my cell literally the 17 times he called me today. Well, I'm on the couch when Fruitcake got home. She sat down and asked me if I wanted some ice cream. I could not help but laugh. We sat there in the silence for a really long time. And then I asked her how much God was going to punish her for living with a screw-up like me. She just looked at me and said, Ashley, God really is not like that at all. He really does love us. I told her I knew all about this God stuff, and I was far too gone and screwed up to even think about God's kind of love. I'm not a religious nutcase like my mom and her family. As much as I love them, they're crazy. She just said, okay, you need to hear Louie talk. He's better at this than I am. So I asked who Louie was. She said he kind of headed up the Passion conferences. So she pulls a couple of DVDs off of her shelf in the entertainment unit. She said they were just Louie talking. They were sermons on DVD. I could not believe that Fruitcake had sermons on DVD. But I agreed to watch anyway. It's not like I had anything better to do. So the first one we watch is called Indescribable. And this Louie guy talked about God differently than I've ever heard before. It was kind of weird. He made it seem like God was for everyone. He made it sound like the God that created the universe really cared about all of us. Then when it was over, Fruitcake asked me what I thought. I told her I didn't buy it. I told her that God is not for me. He does not love people like me. She asked me if I wanted to watch another talk, a.k.a. Preacher Man. I just said, whatever. Again, I had nothing better to do. So we watched one called Passport. In this one, Louie talked about how Christians did not have to hope for the best in the end. That people do not have to do enough good stuff to get to heaven. It made sense. Pretty weird, huh? Then Louie started talking about grace and how God is a loving and forgiving God and that he wants to forgive us. It all made sense. I could hardly breathe, though. Seriously, I was sitting there and oxygen was not flowing through my lungs the way it should. The DVD ended, and the fruitcake just looked up at me. I was crying and trying to regain control of my lungs and gather my thoughts. I asked her if what he said was true, that because of grace, God could love me. That God could even love the screw-ups. She said yes. She said it sounds too easy, but all we have to do is ask Christ to save us, and he will. I've heard of salvation my whole life, but never agreed with the whole deal of all I have to do is ask and everything would be okay. But then Fruitcake explained that it's where grace comes into play. She said it was because God is such a gracious and loving God, that he forgives, that Christ took care of everything on the cross, and he did not just die, but most important, he rose again. And in parentheses, she writes, Easter. In case you didn't know. And that Christianity is the only religion where we get to worship a God that has walked the earth, died, and rose again. So on my couch in my living room, where a lot of SHIT has gone on, I decided that I wanted what Fruitcake had. That I wanted what Jeremy had, and Mom had, what my brother had, and my stepdad all had. I wanted grace. So I asked Jesus in my heart. I asked him to forgive me for all the mistakes I'd made. I told God that I knew I had messed up a lot, but that if he would take me, I wanted to be a Christian. So there you have it. I am a Christian. I feel like a huge weight has been lifted. I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders and I can breathe again. I feel like everything's going to be all right. I feel like I've found something I did not even know I was looking for. I know all this sounds crazy, and I'm sober, I promise. Fruitcake said that she's been praying for me to get saved since the first day she moved in, and she asked me if I was a Christian. Then we got out the ice cream. I'm going to get fat with Fruitcake around. But I wanted to read to you February 8th, and I'll stop with this one. I went to a Bible study with Krista last night that was actually kind of fun and cool. Everyone was like, hey, Ashley, and did not make me feel awkward and stuff at all. It was like I belonged there. They sang some songs which I did not know and everyone else did, but it was cool. My favorite, I came home and looked up the lyrics. Here they are because I love them. I do not know why, but I started crying when they were singing it, and I just wanted to lift my hands like they did. I did not, but I talked to Krista about it afterwards. She said that it's a way of worshiping God. Jesus did take me just like he found me, with all my failures and my screw-ups. He loved me just like I am. He has shown me so much compassion and mercy, and he loves, all caps, me. That just blows me away, you know. And she took the time to write every word out in her journal of this song.
Now, of course, the song that Ashley refers to here is Mighty to Save. And she does, he reads out all the lyrics of that song. I thought, why listen to them? Why not stand and sing it together? And just before we do, the grace of God is a free and undeserved gift that we see in blessings sent to us and in the salvation of sinners. And the story of Ashley is a story of grace. In action, it's the story of a salvation of a sinner. But you know what? There's about 80 to 100 stories of salvation in this room today. And you know why? Because we're unworthy, we're undeserving, we're sinners, and if we weren't, there'd be no need for grace. But we know that that's one of the most important things, the most valuable things that God can offer to us. Do you know what? I'm a screw-up. I can't speak to any of you, but let me ask you, are you a screw-up? Are you a sinner? I just wonder if we could put the lyrics to verse 2 up. So take me as you find me, all my fears and failures fill my life again. That's grace.